Hi there, and welcome along to Africa's Biggest Braai. I'm your host, Zayn Nabbi. And as we get closer to the World Cup, we'll be taking a closer look at the best and brightest on the continent to assess how they will perform at Qatar 2022. In the show, we take a deeper dive on Ghana's Black Stars, a team many didn't fancy to qualify for the tournament. But today, I have my co-host, Aladair Howorth, with me. Ali, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Zayn. Starting to get that World Cup fever. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult, not quite the same when it's not in the summer, but nonetheless, getting very excited and kind of getting really excited to hear about how well Ghana potentially will do.
Absolutely, and I got to admit, I'm excited, but I'm a bit salty because we know that the Ghanaians knocked out the mighty South Africans in the World Cup qualifiers. But even though that's the case, Juliet, absolute pleasure welcoming you onto the show. I know you're an established broadcaster on African football based in Ghana. Juliet Bawuah, welcome to our fire. We hope life is all good with you. Where are you calling in today from?
Good to be here. Thank you very much. So I'm currently in Ghana.
Amazing. Kumasi, Accra, are you allowed to tell us?
Accra.
The one and only. Well, listen, Juliet, let's get right into it. I would love to find out what the mood is like in Ghana. We know that this Ghanaian team struggled in the AFCON, but did excellently to qualify for the World Cup, beating South Africa, beating Nigeria. What's the mood like?
The mood in Ghana, let me say the last few months have been a fantasy for Ghanaians, from a shambolic performance during the Africa Cup of Nations to also securing qualification for the 2022 World Cup. I think it's been a fantasy for Ghanaians. It's been a bit of lows and also some sort of heights. During the AFCON 2021, like you saw, finding the Black Stars finding strikers for the Black Stars seemed to have been a very big issue. But now in comes Iñaki Williams, who plays his club football in Spain. He has joined the team. Felix also Afenajan as well. Antoine Semenyo also represent the future as well for the Black Stars. So looking at the wingers that also we have available, Kamal Soa, who is also an interesting option, although he's not part of the team yet. He has been also superb for his club, that is Club Brugge this season, especially in the Champions League, which he has 2 goals in 5 matches and looks like a wild card for Ghana. But we'll see how that goes. But the disappointing news, maybe in the last few weeks, is having some of the players or a bit of injury with some of the players. But it's been okay for the national team. Terrible outing at the AFCON 2021, but getting the slot to go to Qatar 2022 was more like, this is a fresh start for the national team. What can we do different with this team that is in transition? What can we do in Qatar that will get to better the performance that we had in 2010, let me put it that way, in South Africa. So that is what we are, or that is the kind of journey that the Black Stars are on now. And I know that back home, the expectations are massive. It's huge here in Ghana, but they also have to understand that this particular team is a team in transition.
That kind of is what strikes me when I look at this team, Juliet, particularly when comparing it to the AFCON team. Is the team in the AFCON looked like a tired team, still so reliant on the IU brothers, who are clearly both to differing levels past their best. And now when I look at the team on paper, I see this really exciting attacking team, like you mentioned, Iñaki, but also, Mohammed, who's been superb for Ajax. But I guess the big question, like you said, is how will these guys integrate into the team, especially these big players who have come from abroad, like Iñaki Williams and Tarek Lamptey. I mean, obviously there was the meme going around this summer that Ghana had a better transfer window than the likes of Arsenal and Man United. But I mean, that's a really big question. And if I'm not wrong, you've interviewed Iñaki Williams. How has he come across in terms of that commitment to Ghana and really embracing being a part of the Black Stars?
I think when I was speaking to Iñaki, all these years he never grew up in Ghana. The last time he came to Ghana, he was 3 years. So it's been on his mind. He's had Ghana on his mind, and he wanted to make this switch. But it's also important that he spent most of his years in Spain, so a bit of dilemma in there. But it was important for him because that is his family's wish for him to play with the Black Stars. One might argue that maybe it's because he didn't get selection with the Spanish national team. That's why he feels the Black Stars is an easier option. But speaking to him, you get to understand where he's coming from, that he wants to defend the shirt. He wants to defend the Black Star because he feels that he has to give up something to the national team. So he comes across as a player who wants to give it his all. If he's starting from the bench, if he's getting 10 minutes to play, he's ready to die for the nation. And I was with the team during their friendly matches against Brazil and also Nicaragua, and you could clearly see the willingness to do well for the national team. Once he was put on the pitch, you saw the difference with the kind of quality that he brings to the team, and even a bit of inexperience also on the other side with some of the attackers that we have on the pitch. So I think his qualities is never in doubt. In our attacking space, I wouldn't say we are there yet, or the Black Stars are there yet, but it's clearly an upgrade of what we've seen over the years.
Obviously, our eyes are naturally attracted to the goal scorers, the attackers, but we all know that tournament football is all about strong defenses. And if anything, do you feel like those acquisitions, I put in quotes, of players like Mohammed Salisu, finally playing, and Tariq Lamptey making that transition, how important is it to have those guys finally coming in and giving a really, really strong backbone to the side?
Well, the defensive area of the Black Stars, I will say, really look stacked with what we've seen in the past. We've always had strength when it comes to our defensive area. You can talk about the likes of John Mensah, Pencil, so many players comes to mind. But the likes of maybe Tariq Lamptey offers great space from the right back side and also wing back position. So it gives you options. If you're a coach of the senior national team, you have options. Player like Mohammed Salisu is also a great passer and an excellent interceptor of the ball. So if you have someone like this coming in, if I'm Coach Otto Addo, I'm sure that I'll be trying to figure out how I get to fit in maybe Salisu, Jiku, Daniel Amate, all to get the needed results. But last season, remember, with Salisu, he led the Premier League interceptions with, I think, about 78, and which is really impressive for a player of his nature. Then comes also Daniel Amate, who, and also Alexander Jiku. They have been a potential form for that solid center partnership that we've seen with the Black Stars in the last few years. Whilst a certain Dennis Odoi is also in there, who also provides a lot of composure from that fullback position.
I think that's one thing that strikes me about this team is you finally have a bit of depth. We're not over reliant on Dede Ayew, and you have kind of depth. And yeah, like you said, to play with that flexibility, whether Odoi's played as a wing back or kind of maybe as part of that back three. But for me, the one thing though that still strikes me about this team, and I want to get your insight into this, is it feels still that midfield is so light, and it kind of everything hinges on Thomas Partey. What are your thoughts on kind of that situation?
I think, like you mentioned, it's really clear. He's an important figure for the Black Stars, and also against Brazil, it became so clear that Ghana needed a player who can easily break the lines and also resist when opposition they are pressing. So it was very evident that he was missed in that particular game. And like we all know, Partey is an elite player, and he's also an elite in those which we have seen to great effect what he's doing at Arsenal this season. He's also really deadly from long range and scoring too from the outside the box for his club already this season. So many Ghanaians hope that he stays fit for the group games and also even beyond. But now the challenge with this particular Black Stars team is how they get to find a right pair or a right fit for Thomas Partey, and how we even set up in the middle. I think over the period, we've tried the likes of Baba Idrisu, pairing him to play. There's also Salisu, who is playing very well for his club. He's been drafted into the 55-man squad, who is very likely to go to Qatar and make his debut at the World Cup. So it's not time to figure out where Partey plays. Is it for us to build the whole team around him? Because like at Arsenal, he is like the brain box of the team. If Partey should get injured now, it's going to be a big problem for Arsenal.
I have to ask you, I'm an old man. I remember the 2010 World Cup. I was a South African. Our team got knocked out in the early stages, but we certainly got behind the Ghana team. Some people affectionately calling the Ghanaians Bagana, obviously Bafana being the national team. I see Alistair like that one. But the group stage game against Uruguay versus the Black Stars, it's going to be one of the ones that people around the world are going to be looking forward to. As a Ghanaian, how do you feel about seeing your 2010 tormentors, the team that prevented you from making the semis, which would have been historic for the continent?
No, I was at the stadium when it used to be called Soccer City. I watched that particular match. After the match, about 2 hours, I was still at the stadium. I couldn't move because I'm like, what just happened? What just happened? You know, after the penalties and everything, we're all in shock and all that. But I think over the years, all the pain and everything has gone down a bit. But anytime you see Suárez, like back here in Ghana, many Ghanaians, I can tell you, many Ghanaians want revenge after that heartbreak quarterfinal game against Uruguay in 2010. The Black Stars, like you mentioned, were really close to making history in South Africa. So the game is expected to be treated like a final, this particular game. When you speak to the coach, that is Otto Addo, he says that they're not going to the game with revenge in their minds. They need to take it like every other game because, you know, the group is a very open group. Even a team can qualify with 3 points from that particular group. So it's a very open group. One will say that maybe Uruguay has the chance this time to beat Ghana like in 90 minutes and not drag the game to penalties like they did. But it has to be noted that the South American country have quality players in the team. They are fading the old guns out of the team, but even the new ones that they are bringing in, so much quality. We can talk about Federico Valverde, who stands out this season with his long range prowess. Anytime he scores, I think everyone in Ghana goes like, is that guy, is he going to play again? Is he going to play against us? You know, with all the injury lists piling up and they don't see his name, they're like, meaning he's coming to World Cup. That was just by the way, but hopefully they get to find how to stop those particular crosses or those long range shots that Valverde will be providing for his national team. Trust me, that game is going to be very lively game. It's going to be fireworks. The Black Stars are not talking too much. We might not have the quality, or the Black Stars might not possess that quality that the Uruguayans have, but I think they not going in for the revenge in the minds of the players. But trust me, for the fans, you can never take it away from them. You can't tell them to do something different, you know. But it will be good to see Suárez, although I think he might not start that particular game because of previous matches that they've played. He comes in as a sub, and he's not like an integral part of the team now, but you can never take anything away from him. Never say never. Who knows? Maybe after that particular match, it will be the Black Stars smiling, although I doubt.
Well, listen, for those of you listening out there, hit us up on our social media accounts, OTW_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or find us on YouTube or Facebook. Just search for the On the Whistle podcast. And tell us if you think that there is no bigger game in the group stages than Uruguay and Ghana when it comes to rivalry. Come on, let us know what you think. And let us know who you think is going to win the game. We'd love to hear from you. Juliet, you've been so generous with your time. I just have one more question before I'm going to hand over to Aladair to CSL. But when you look at Ghana's group games, how do you think they'll approach their first game against Portugal when you take into consideration that they're going to be targeting South Korea and Uruguay for points?
I think it'll be a very interesting game, especially the first game against Portugal. You know, we've played them before at the World Cup. It was really an interesting game. But, you know, as the saying goes in the World Cup, just 1 second loss of concentration means that you get punished for that particular game, and the game is gone. I think Otto Addo and his team should set up a really strong team against Portugal, which he will do. I think he will do, and try, in a way, maybe try to beat a Portugal on a counter-attack. Because trust me, with the squad depth for this Portuguese national team, to playing them man-to-man would be really, really difficult. So he needs to come up with a plan. Cristiano Ronaldo and co will probably enjoy most of the possession, which is really obvious. But Ghana has the likes of Iñaki, Antoine Semenyo, and others who are quick as well in transition. So the technical team, I think, has to use that, and Ghana might get a good result from that first game.
I think that's the right attitude. And I think as well, looking at the Portuguese team, obviously, you look at their players, you know, this is potentially the best team in the world. But they've been so poor the last few years. You know, they had a terrible Euros. You know, they came behind Serbia in the World Cup qualifying. Yeah, and, you know, had to scrape, you know, the win against North Macedonia to get to the World Cup. So I think, you know, there's a lot of hope where actually you can take the game to them, even if they have, you know, man for man. It's not even a question of, you know, how good this Portuguese team. I think there's a lot to be said about how we can kind of get at them. And I suppose that brings me on to my kind of next question is, we've looked at the players, the tools Ghana have, and the teams you're playing. But, you know, we've spoken about the flexibility Ghana now has. And, you know, but I want to know about the man behind that flexibility, you know, Mr. Otto Addo. You know, how do you assess how he's done, you know, so far? And, how, you know, where is he in terms of how Ghana have seen him? Because, you know, we've seen some of the difficulties Ghana's had head coach, obviously, with, you know, Milovan coming back for the AFCON and it not working out after O'Connor you know, had his spell, and he's obviously come out and kind of said stuff about selection on the verge of the team being selected. You know, what is the assessment of Addo and how he's done, and as well as Chris Hughton, who's kind of a bit more behind the scenes in a technical role?
I think they have made some improvements, but there are weaknesses, and we can all see the weaknesses. I think after we saw how poorly Ghana performed against Brazil in terms of keeping the ball and also defending set pieces. Horrible. After the game, I get to speak to him. I asked him a few questions if he thought that his selection was a problem for him, because maybe now he has, if I should say, he's selecting from. So is it trying to cause some sort of maybe selection headaches for him? He, in one of the interviews, I think admitted that he made mistakes in his selections and all that. But, you know, going into this is a major tournament, which every decision counts. Every decision will count for good or for bad. So as a coach, they need to be firm in making decisions. As a coach or as technical brains, that is Otto Addo, Chris Hughton, and the others, they need to make sure that they are in sync and they know their players and they know how to get the best out of their players.
The margins are so fine, particularly at a World Cup. You know, one decision either way can make or break an entire nation.
Yeah. The World Cup, and like we always say, the World Cup will also determine the mood in camp. It has really changed since the Africa Cup of Nations. You get players getting excited about even playing for the national team. And I remember when you asked about the likes of Iñaki, I can say that his announcement even brought happiness and hope to Ghanaian fans, since Asamoah's last appearance for the Black Stars in 2019, different strikers have played that particular role and failed to produce good numbers. So at some point, the strike force that we had scored under 20% of Black Stars' goals in a 3-year span. So it tells you that we're lacking in that side. The midfielders had to step up. The likes of Andre Ayew became even more important with his goals. Now Iñaki is here. He has performed brilliantly at club level in the last few years. This season, he has 5 goals already to his name, and we can only hope that it can improve in the next few matches. Otto Addo has a player who does not only finish, but also creates space for his teammates to score as well. We can bring in, we can talk about Kudus benefited from that greatly against Nicaragua. So if you have a player like this, if you have a player like Kudus, you have a player like Kamaldeen, who hopefully, we hope that his injury is not that serious, that he will be able to make the World Cup. I think it's now time for the technical team to let Ghanaians know exactly what their game plan is, because you have this pool of players. Now let us see, how do you want to play? Do you want to go in for a 3-4-2-1 formation, a 4-4-2 formation, a 5-3? You know, we need to figure out how the team has to play so that there wouldn't be confusion in the minds of the players. Because sometimes when you speak to the players, you know, they don't give up much, but when you pick some signals from some quarters, clearly there are some confusion somewhere. So it's good that they all have clarity in how they want them to play or how they want to set up for this particular World Cup. And it can set the tone for a really good Christmas. If they perform poorly, I think so many people will not be too happy in Ghana, but we hope that they know what is at stake. They know the expectations back home, the mood already with the economy back home, not too great. So the only thing that gives them joy, as in the fans back home, some sort of joy, is the Black Stars. So we hope that this time the Black Stars will come to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the tools are there. You've given me a lot more joy and kind of hope for Ghana than I did 12 months ago, Juliet. So I'm a lot more excited. But I've also, left this conversation with, I feel like, far more questions than answers. There's so many questions around this team. But I only have one last question for you, Juliet. How far is the Ghana Black Stars going to go in Qatar 2022?
Well, I'll be very optimistic. I'm not expecting much from the team. I have seen them over the years. I've seen how they've played. Like I've mentioned to so many people, this is a team in transition. I'm looking at they're building a proper team for them to win the Africa Cup of Nations in 2024. So I'm not expecting much from this team. My expectations are really low. But I feel that if anytime that our expectations are low for the Black Stars, they step up because they don't want to be termed as getting there and making up and also just getting to add up to the numbers. You can also go look beyond the quality of the other group opponents in that Group H, solid opponents against Portugal, South Korea, Uruguay. I'm so struggling which of the teams that we can pick 3 points. So we need to start right with Portugal. Like you rightly mentioned, at the World Cup, total concentration. You might have all the possession at this World Cup and still just 1 second flip and you lose the game. So if they do their things right, it starts from the technical team. You have your team, you set up properly. The players play according to instructions and they look out for each other on the pitch in terms of recovery of balls and also maybe covering up for each other. And the attacking force has to be prolific and not, if you know that you get 3 chances, you're scoring 1 of that. If you get 3 or 4, 5 chances and you're not scoring any of that, you should know that those other chances, when it gets to the other half, it will be converted into goals. So my expectations are really low. I'm not expecting too much for the Black Stars, but I hope that it wouldn't be a disgraceful outing like we did in 2014 with all the other side issues and all that. But it will be somehow good outing and a really relaxed one for the Black Stars to play in like we did in South Africa 2010. So I'm hoping that they build on from that particular World Cup and not the 2014 one, and make sure that they, first of all, have to play for the badge, play for the country, play for their families. You know, World Cup is all about the fans, it's all about the excitement, but most importantly, play for themselves as players, because you need to make an impact. And if it can change your life from good to bad, or bad to good, or bad to, yeah, anyhow you want to put it. That's what the World Cup does to players. So if they want to make a statement, it has to be now.
Juliet, Bawuah, thank you so much for that analysis. We're full with optimism. I know that I'm going to be watching Uruguay, Ghana. That's already locked in. I know I want the R word, revenge. Same with Aladair and the other fans. We wish you well. We hope you enjoy the tournament. And may the Black Stars fly high and go far.